But I know, as again from my experience in Seward, having a port authority there with a harbor master has proven advantageous from not only an oversight standpoint, but certainly from a standpoint of billing rates, as the case may be, or even code enforcement, as the case may be. Now, I don't know how intertwined development rate review and enforcement is in the city of Whittier. Maybe the town is small enough and the resources are plenty enough that it's manageable. But I've found that in Seward, at least, them utilizing the Port Authority in the way that they do has proven to be fruitful from an economic standpoint.
Thank you.
Well, what kind of experience have you got with comprehensive plan development?
I would like to think a lot. I've worked for the Metropolitan Organization, and I've been a part of the Metropolitan Organization in not only Washington, D.C., but also here in Anchorage, Alaska. My roles were different. I was a voting member in both cases, and just for context sake, the MPO is, if you have one, then the MPO is the one that does the long-range plan for a city or a multitude of cities. And so in Washington, D.C., the MPO was for almost 6 different counties within proximity of Washington, D.C., and then including Washington, D.C. itself. And those were the long-range plans that I was working on. Here, of course, it's the MPO for Anchorage, and it's unique because it's an MPO and it's part of the city. And I have been working on the 20-year plan for the last year, if you will. I believe it is due for finalization sometime towards the middle of 2019. And so during my tenure, I was the first director to work with my peer over at over planning before he departed and left for Seattle, to give the city of Anchorage the ability to align its land use plan.
Are you still there, Abu? Abu, can you still hear us? No. It's that 1 hour thing. Will, can you hear us? I wonder if his phone died. Will, are you on mute? No? Will, are you there? Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, we lost you there. Sorry, you're back.
Okay, good. So I think I left off at the comprehensive plan. So yes, so I'm at the table educating not only the assembly but also the administration on how the how the 20-year plan, your comprehensive plan, frankly, is the Bible from which you write your city. So one should talk about the visions and the aspirations for where one sees, oneself as a city 20 years from now, and all the various components that need to go in. But more importantly, I find that it's a much more conducive plan if it is easily understood, it's transparent, and you involve your very people as part of the plan. So I suppose the short answer to your question is yes, I have extensive experience in drafting and adding on to the comprehensive plan and aligning it with a multitude of different departments and the singular vision, if one can be achieved, for how to do citywide planning.
Bull, this is Dan Blair. I had a question. Would you describe the relationship between the city manager and the city council?
Yes, having been sort of reviewing that, at least here under two administrations, I would say presently it is one that is of mutual respect, in which, of course, that doesn't mean that you're going to agree on everything. There are certainly disagreements to be had, but frankly, at least under this administration, how we've been able to avoid those disagreements is by being able to answer as many questions as possible long before the assembly goes into session. And so that has remedied a lot of the issues and lowered a lot of the anxiety that existed under the previous administration, in which perhaps that was not happening. It is a relationship of, frankly, mutual respect, in which we're able to get transparent answers from both ends, understanding the needs of each other.
Okay, we're running out of time. Well, what I'm going to try to lump three questions here together in one. Basically, and without divulging anything confidential here, but give me an example. If you've supervised 300 people, you probably terminated somebody. And what I would like to hear is the process you went through. Did you try to do remedial training, suspension, reprimands, or did you just go straight to termination, or what you've done to avoid terminating people?
So if I understand it correctly, sorry, you cut out there in the middle, is give you an example of an individual that I suppose that they had issues, in which I tried a variety of different things in an attempt not to terminate them?
Correct.
Perfect. Yes. Well, I find that termination is, again, it's not something that I like doing. It's certainly something that I've done in my life. It's never an enjoyable moment. And so the focus is always on being able to do a lot of different things leading up to that, to include last chance agreements. I deal with frontline employees a lot, and so the terminations that I deal with are largely related to individuals that we bring in as bus operators who perhaps just didn't work out. Maybe they couldn't provide customer service, or maybe they had a bad accident record. So before I answer the question, I will mention one thing, which is that I'm not oblivious to the fact that when you have, we're not talking about the summertime in Whittier, of course, you're talking about the general populace there. The nuances are a bit different. Because the population is so much smaller. So remedial training, I think, is probably the best course of action to take if the issue can be resolved that way, given a small population size. But what I've focused largely on is being able to go through corrective measures. And that's why our policies and procedures are there. The discussions that I have with HR, the union, and the individuals is that, listen, I'm not here to be punitive. In fact, I do not like punitive aspects of discipline. What I want to know is, what can we do to be able to better enable you to provide the level of service that we expect of you? And if that means that we get you more education, so be it. If that means that we get you more safety training or other types of remedial training, then so be it. So termination then, for me in my lifetime, has been exclusively reserved for when an individual has demonstrated that they've been given every single opportunity to learn, to be mentored, to go out and get as much training as possible, and despite that, they've chosen to either ignore all of that and still do what we've sort of instructed them cannot be done. And if they've done that, then to me that they're derelict, and there isn't enough of a record to be able to go through to the point of termination. But I do not take termination lightly. We've exhausted in my tenure every effort possible to be able to train, rehabilitate our employees towards the guidance and the path that we want them to go towards. And so it has been an exception, luckily for me, to reach a point of termination, not the rule.
Thank you.
Well, we're getting close to the end here. Do you have anything you'd like to add, or do you have any questions you have for us?
I I do have a lot of questions, but they are really, I mean, it's sort of, I think they're very much specific to sort of land use and agreements that you might be in. So this probably would not be the appropriate time for those. But hopefully I will get the opportunity to sort of sit down and hopefully pick someone's brain a bit more about some ideas that I ran across as I was looking and reviewing your long-range plan. And I realized that it requires an update as well. But no, I do not have any specific questions. I enjoyed the conversation with all of you. I certainly appreciate the time that you've taken to be able to listen to me talk about myself. I hope I get the opportunity again to meet you all in person and have a lengthy conversation.
Well, likewise, thank you so much for your time, and you're candid, and I really enjoyed the answers you gave us.
Very good. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Bill.
All right. Take care. Yep. Bye.
And I'm sorry, it should have occurred to me to get you guys the resume. That was that would have really helped. I should have thought of that. I forgot that.
All good.
I forgot we're the only ones that.
Really quick.
I'll look at the picture.
Okay, this is just his LinkedIn.
Yeah, we'll probably be talking to this guy again here as I can tell.
Okay, sounds great.
He's a talker.
We're all sleeping so this guy. He's very smart. He thinks on his feet. I was comparing the other day. The other guy was he kept growing himself with that kid.
He stayed on top.
Yes.
There's good and bad with that.
I can tell there's it's got administrative.
Probably done more than once. It doesn't having that exact position is I don't know, and he didn't, the only question he didn't answer was sort of like we answered that last relationship. He took it more of the first one, I'm going ahead, but the question was designed to function. And so the question is, that was the only question that I had. There's also this obviously that's the only one. I understand that. What you got? So I think the question's out there. I think they're questions, but he related to what he said. Sitting down and have a coffee for a second. I got no problem. I'm just saying that I can see why he saw that question, and I can see why Mark Lynch did not see that question. But that actually says Mark Lynch because he saw it as a mechanical, and this guy sees it as a personal relationship. struggling over here. I'm so glad you guys start with some resolutions because on the original it had a date for second reading and
Thank you. I got that.
okay. That's for you, Bonzi. This is just amended because in the resolution it had scheduled for a second reading, and we don't do second readings for resolutions, so we struck that and we amended it, so we should be good now. Sweet. Oh gosh. Just think the computer that we struck the. You can. You need help with that? Yes, maybe. Maybe not. We can get it. If he'll come. Yes. We're not going to get away with
I call to order Whittier City Council regular meeting Tuesday, July 17th at 7 p.m. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council roll call. Peter Denmark.
Here.
Victor Shun.
Here.
Monty Irvin.
Here.
David Pinkish.
Here.
Dave Dickinson.
Here.
Deborah Hicks.
Here.
Dan Blair.
Here. Let the record reflect Andy Reeves, City Manager, let the record reflect administration present. Ame, City Attorney, John Janik, Finance Director, Kyle Sinclair, Harbor Master, Greg Russell, Chief, and Scott Corby, Public Works. I'd ask for a motion for approval of minutes.
Move to adopt the minutes of June 19th, regular meeting minutes, and June 26th, special meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Calling for a vote. Dave Pinkish.
Yes.
Dave Dickinson.
Yes.
Deborah Hicks.
Yes.
Monty Irvin.
Yes.
Peter Denmark.
Yes.
Victor Shun.
Yes.
And Dan Blair.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I'd ask for a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
May I quickly interject? I'm sorry. I was going to see if someone could please make a motion to amend the agenda so that we can discuss the comprehensive plan proposal under new business.
Can we do that without having it in the posted agenda?
I believe we can. I also sent an email to all council members on the 13th with the information so that for adequate time for review, and I also have copies of the proposal with me.
Okay, I'm asking for a motion.
Move to adopt regular meeting agenda with the addition of comprehensive plan discussion under new business. I'll second.
Any discussion? Calling for a vote, Dave Pinkish.
Yes.
Dave Dickinson.
Yes.
Monty Irvin.
Yes.
Deborah Hicks.
Yes.
Victor Shun.
Yes.
Peter Denmark.
Yes.
And Dan Blair.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So for my mayor's report, Dave Dickinson and I met for a couple hours and went over the city manager hiring process. Came up with some questions, and we did a preliminary interview and tried to do an additional one. After that, I contacted Dave Pinkush, and he had some very important input as far as the structure of how we're doing the job interview process. So it was a group effort. The patience of council is much appreciated. It's very important that we get good candidates vetted with all members of council on board. That's it.
I just have a question. I saw the first flaw in this building. Doing the Pledge of Allegiance today, I turned around and I saw the view behind us. We should have been back there and looking that way, this way.
We would never get anything done.
Well, you're in our way. I mean, we're in your way, so if we're up elevated, we can see over the top of you guys, so just...
Okay, manager's report.
So I just have a few items. The very first is that yesterday the mayor, the harbor master, the director of public works, and I, along with our state lobbyist, Chris Noss, met with Senator Mike Shower, who is new for this area. We had a phenomenal visit with him. We were able to discuss pressing needs and concerns for Whittier, and he was very amenable, open, and encouraged by our ideas of moving forward and opening up Whittier for tourism and the Head of the Bay project and the DeLong dock. We talked about funding needs and funding opportunities, and he really sees Whittier as a treasure, as just a place that could really benefit Alaska in the entirety as a place to be developed and to grow tourism opportunities and economic development. And it was a very pleasant visit with him and his wife. So I'm encouraged by having met him and started down that relationship. I would also then like to thank, we don't often take the time to publicly thank employees that are doing a really great job. And Gino from Public Works is doing a fantastic job servicing vehicles for public safety and just stand-up performance. So I just want to say thank you to Gino. I also would like to inform the public that the Army Corps of Engineers has posted a public notice that the public has an opportunity to weigh in until July 27th on the tentatively selected plan for the Head of the Bay project, the breakwater and boat launch project. And if anyone would like information on how to access that study, you can either see me after the meeting, or you can email me, or you can call me, and I will let you know how to access that information if you'd like to give public comments. And the very last thing that I would like to bring up is actually I am going to I guess, share information about a situation that we have going on. And I'm going to seek just council direction or consensus on this particular issue that has come to my attention. And that is the Alaska Wild Guide kayak parking at the head of the bay. I think that there seems to be some misunderstandings and miscommunications about the situation that's going on. And I would like to take this opportunity to clarify my understanding of the situation and also just to weigh in on council in the entirety, whether or not administration has indeed crossed boundaries. But at the beginning of the season, our harbor master was faced with addressing crowding, traffic congestion, and a public safety issue in and around the inn at Whittier. As camping, parking, and the head of the bay are all within his purview and authority, Kyle came up with a viable solution of allowing Alaska Wild Guides to park their 2 trailers and kayaks at the head of the bay. I would like to stress that Alaska Wild Guides is not conducting business at the head of the bay. The owners are actually here. Amanda and Derek are sitting in the audience. They can confirm what I am saying to be true. Their business is located in Girdwood. They take reservations in Girdwood. They take payments in Girdwood. The only thing that they do here where they've been allowed to park at the head of the bay is I believe they meet their clients there, correct me if I'm wrong. They outfit them and then they launch at the head of the bay their kayaks, which I believe is something that is available to all kayaking businesses here because we don't have specific designated kayak launching facilities. So then it came to my attention that there are disgruntled folks because this particular business has been allowed to park at the head of the bay and never taking anything lightly. I researched the master lease, our Whittier Municipal Code. I also looked at our comprehensive plan. And basically, I also vetted everything that we were doing through legal and found out that we are not in violation of the code, the master lease, or our comprehensive plan. So at this point, from administration side, through a very quick and temporary solution to a problem, because they're actually looking to find a more substantial long-term solution. They want to create a business here and they're trying to find a place, correct, to conduct their business out of. So this was a very short, temporary solution. So from this, we feel, administration feels that we're spurring economic development by finding solutions instead of throwing up roadblocks to small businesses. They're bringing in additional revenue. They are bringing in additional tourists. They are compliant with their business license. They're going to pay their sales taxes. They've also paid additional fees for parking, for the privilege of parking in that small area at the head of the bay. And then the additional benefit that we hadn't even conceived when we started down this road is that we're actually safeguarding our land interests at the head of the bay, because right now the railroad is saying that we've lost our ability to use that area. And so by allowing this public use to occur, even if it's temporary in nature, we can make an argument to the railroad saying we're trying, it may be slow, but we are trying to develop land use at the head of the bay. So at this point, since the decision is legally sufficient, we feel that we're listening to the comprehensive plan by spurring economic development and bringing in revenue, which is needed in these times. I just want to see clarification that administration is free to do these actions. Are we free to spur economic development? Are we free to encourage small businesses to choose Whittier as a base of operations and generate additional revenue streams? Are we okay safeguarding our land interests from, the railroad's agenda and work within the bounds of the master lease, the Whittier Municipal Code, and the comprehensive plan? I'm seeking direction because, again, I've been getting a lot of pushback and directives that I need to cease and desist from the decision. And I will do whatever you guys tell me to do. I thought we were doing a good thing as an administration.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Just came to my attention that we're not televised. Scott, we're supposed to be on TV.
I got an email that said that we were live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you, though.
Yeah. Is this another situation like use it or lose it with the railroad?
That is the argument that they're making, that because we have not used those particular parcels, we have lost our ability to, that basically we've given up our rights. So it's a contested issue.
Is the railroad contesting it right now?
We're contesting their assertion that we have lost.
Okay, right. Yeah. How did we come out with that acre of land that was supposed to be utilized as a parking lot on the west side of the baggage tower?
I'm sorry, Monty. No, I know the area that you're talking about, but the issue, I'm lost. I'm talking about the head of the bay, and you're talking about the BTI area, to the west.
How is that resolved?
It's still I think the railroad is willing to let it go, that particular parcel right now, from the conversations that I've had with Doug Stevens.
And, but they're not so willing at the head of the bay? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
I guess I can tell you my thoughts. I think that, like, from my standpoint, I believe it's all right as long as these opportunities are extended to anybody and everybody. They're not extended just to a specific
Type of business.
yeah. I feel like as long as opportunities are extended to everybody.
And again, this wasn't done with a whole lot of premeditation. It was a rather quick decision by the harbor master to fix a problem. And from there are opportunities to discuss and figure out. I think it's timely that we're discussing the comprehensive plan, because we kind of need to figure out not doing something is not an option, or we're going to lose out. So therefore, maybe this is the catalyst that we've been waiting for to discuss. Is this a viable option? Is this a direction we want to move in? And I agree that it is something that should be allowed for everyone. What does that look like? I don't know. Yeah. That's where I need you guys.
I do feel like there needs to be some sort of long-term planning involved, because
Absolutely.
I could see how local businesses can definitely be disheartened to see that
if anyone else wants
a lot of effort into like establishing a base business here. I can see how someone can be very upset when they see that maybe another business exerting much less effort can come up with the same amount of economic productivity. That can be very disheartening, I could see, and they could really feel disenfranchised by the presence of that. I think, we need to be careful with that, but as long as I feel like it's extended to everybody and people know that they have, these opportunities are there, and then we have a long-term plan either in place or being developed, so that we don't have all these temporary solutions popping up, becoming permanent.
Right. No, you're absolutely correct.
I think it just helps just to be just to clarify the situation. It's a parking situation. It's not a mobile vendor situation. I think that it has the appearance of being a mobile vendor, and
right.
And without asking, if you don't ask any question, we didn't know that was what the situation was there. But it makes sense if it's parking. We don't have a lot of parking here, so
no.
It makes sense.
And if I may also share my personal opinion, they've paid a hefty sum for the privilege of parking at the head of the bay, and if anyone else wants to pay to park at the head of the bay, come see me. We'll talk. But again, it matters not to me. Again, from administration, we were trying to do a good thing. We're trying to be a welcoming city to businesses, and we are pressed for space. And again, this is a short-term solution for an issue that we're even still discussing and trying to find long-term solutions for. But I'm not going to do anything. I'm open. I want to talk. I want this to be a conversation. I don't want to go off on my own and do whatever I want to do. If there is a significant issue, a policy issue that is being violated somehow, that's why I'm here.
So the original problem at the end of Whittier, was there a space that the city was leasing that was creating a congestion?
The original problem was that the original problem was they were trying to do it a good job and launch it at the passenger area there off of the end of Whittier. The problem with that is that they're large kayaks and Epic charters and Matt's boats down there. It was a chaos, and it was a safety issue. So I had asked them if we could take and resolve this by moving them up there and parking their stuff and get it out of that area, so that we all, that we could relieve the pressure off of that passenger dock. That was the reason in the first place.
So I totally agree with Victor and Dave, but as far as long-term, is that something we do with the comprehensive plan, or do we need to revisit it some other way?
So part of the solution, I think, does lie in the comprehensive plan. We need to have a strategic vision for these different areas. How are we going to develop them? What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? In terms of our long-term solution with Alaska Wild Guides, that's a different conversation, because maybe there is an area of land that we can lease them close. I'm not sure at this point, but I think it might be a twofold solution. But yes, comprehensive plan, definitely.
So, Derek, thank you for coming. The point of the no mobile vendors in the ordinance is to protect the interests of the companies that have 12-month infrastructure within the city limits. This has come up over the years, usually in reference to coffee shops, restaurants, and such things. So that's where the issue lies regarding there. And nothing against Alaska Wild Guides. This is a problem created by the city. It's contrary to our ordinance. Whatever legality you want to apply to it, it is contrary to ordinance. The reality here, the summer's half over. Finish it off. We got another month left, and this is all over. But for those companies, and I've taken a lot of conversation about this from other outfitters in town here, so that's why I'm choosing to speak, guys. That is the issue. We're invested in lots, leases, utilities, everything across the board. And if I could operate from a trailer and live in Girdwood, it has a certain appeal. Thank you.
Duly noted, sir. Point taken.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Annie regarding the manager's report?
I guess mine is, does this clarify things for you?
So I'm going to take Peter's comment that finish it out.
I'm only one vote.
Correct.
I'm not a consensus.
Well, and that's why I'm bringing it up, right? So unless there's someone else, my direction then is to go ahead and finish it out, and moving forward, open up opportunities equally across the board, try to mitigate and try to really be proactive, I guess, in finding those situations that may cause us to have to react instead of be proactive.
And please consider a potential economic impact. Yes, it's good to bring in new business. It's healthy to have new competition generally, but new competition coming in dilutes business that already exists here in town at the same time. There's a double edge to that sword.
Absolutely, and I hope to have those discussions when we discuss the comprehensive plan. I really do. So I'm sorry.
I'll just throw this in and remind council that short-term land use permits like this are fully within the city manager's authority. So it's great to have a discussion about the plans.
Short-term lease on a master lease has a land use permit.
Right.
Because I always thought that the master lease required, if you were going to lease the property to a third party, that you had to actually define and survey the land use area and get it approved by the railroad.
Yes.
We've gotten it approved by the railroad?
Mayor Blair, you're totally right that a sublease would have to be approved by the railroad, but a permit would not, because a permit is not an interest in land. It's revocable at will. It's short term. You can yank it at any time. So the other person, the person with the permit, doesn't have an interest that they could claim. There's not an interest in the land. It's just you have the right to use this property for a very short, defined window of time. And my understanding is this is not a mobile business. It's just parking. So
where's the facility? If there's no facility, it's mobile.
Okay, well.
Well, what?
My opinion is that this is totally permissible under the city manager's ability to enter into short-term permits.
Just because I like arguing with lawyers. Is there not a provision in our code about mobile vendors?
Yes, it does. It says mobile vendor means a seasonally conducted commercial enterprise in a building, vehicle, or enclosure designed for relocation with minimal effort. And my understanding is that the business is not conducted from the trailers that are parked there. They're just, I mean, it would be like any other entity or individual who has a couple of trailers, buildings, cars, RVs, whatever, that they're purchasing a parking permit from the city. That's my understanding.
They're storing commercial kayaks and possibly skidoos or something like that with the intent of conducting business. I mean, with the internet, you can conduct business anywhere that you have cell service.
But isn't the business license in Girdwood? It's not in Whittier, correct?
My understanding is that we have a business license in Whittier. You are paying sales taxes in Whittier. Their business is the license is here.
And once again, guys, this is nothing personal. This is city trying to conduct its own business and finding its way here and trying to find a consistent application, which we have extreme difficulty doing given our current code and policy circumstance here. So please, these are, the arguments here is more ethereal than it may seem.
This is a permit, it's not a lease, right? I mean, we're going to have this master plan. We've had these master grandiose plans for the head of the bay for years and nothing's happened. But we're trying to make them happen, and so hopefully we're not grandfathering people into a situation we can't resolve later on.
So if we're talking about equal enforcement, because I've done my research, there are other entities that are considered mobile vendors that do business here. that we would then have to completely stifle. So this is a very serious consideration, and that's why I'm bringing it forth before
Please
council.
name them.
Okay, so I have Travis, who's a mobile mechanic. I don't know how to pronounce this. Rudd is another mobile mechanic. Nick Swain, mobile freight wrangler on city property. Those are 3 that I got. And really, again, if we're talking about equal enforcement, we can go down, I mean, this is just, it gets into a very mean, to me, spirited, unproductive conversation where really, if we're after equal enforcement, that's an entirely different conversation. And it really sets a negative tone that I would rather not go into, especially for a season, especially when we're having conversation that we're going to be going into the comprehensive plan, that we're going to try and find viable solutions to spur economic development, to generate revenue, to be business friendly, that doesn't stifle current enterprises, but yet allows freedom and flexibility to grow. Are we about growing? That's where I'm at. This is not ideal. I'll be the first to admit it. It started off as a spur-of-the-moment decision. Hey, let's put them here. But it can be an opportunity to grow and develop and figure out what we're about and where we're going and what we're doing.
Regardless, my opinion remains the same. There's no reason to turn these people upside down in the middle of the summer at this stage of the game. It would be pointless and fruitless. But I think the city has to be a little more circumspect in how they approach these issues. The mobile vendor issue is a significant issue, and for those of us who do maintain infrastructure here 12 months a year.
And I do appreciate the forward thinking and the information that you're bringing to council. In years past, we've had some, I think, 2 members that of the business community that are currently located in Whittier that have tried to do what these guys successfully did at the head of the bay. Different management, they got different answers. So it gets really confusing. We have, members of our business community that have done a business plan with the idea that they would make a certain amount of money within a very short season, and they're letting us know about it.
I don't know what else to say other than point taken, understood. It needs to be across the board. We're going to work on finding solutions. I need help through the comprehensive plan and envisioning what we're about.
Okay, council, do you have any further questions?
I guess, how does this compare to charter boats? Do all the charter boat captains have facilities here? This may be a dumb question. I'm just trying to, educate myself. Is there any comparison here with charter boats? Because I don't think all of them have invested infrastructure here. And if we need to draw a comparison, let's talk about it now, I guess, before it goes any more confusing.
For the most part, they have to have some type of transient mortgage or something. We've had a couple that tried to get by without it, but I think everybody's, I don't know,
Depends on how you look at it. A boat that has a toilet, a sink, and shower, or what does it have to have? 3 things: a bed, a sink, and a toilet. And it can be considered a place of abode, which will allow you to vote in Whittier. So that would be one. I don't know. That would be one. I never thought about it. You know, Annie mentioned the mechanics. There's like 158 business licenses. Well, one time it was. How many of those have infrastructure in Whittier? Probably 50. So I don't know, you know, there's I won't name names, but there's several other mechanics, same thing, doing the same thing. So, you know, they're just here in a van. So I think it's something that has to be looked at in a comprehensive plan. Maybe there can be a different rate structure for business licenses for a mobile vendor versus a planted vendor. Is a boat planted? Questions to answer, questions for the winter time, for the comprehensive plan.
So Annie, what do you need from us? Consensus?
Yes, please.
We call for a vote.
To allow permits?
A vote to know that it's okay to allow them to finish out their season. Peter's already said yes, so yeah.
We don't need a vote, do we? Just say yes to the season.
Yes.
We'll figure it out this winter.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Do we have any questions for the directors?
Harbor Master?
Okay.
Is Kyle, is the revenue stream intact from the DeLong dock to the city coffers? Is that rolling along like it should? Or could? Or has in the past?
You asked me this yesterday, and I said no. But fortunately, I have a good answer for you. Whittier Seafoods has sent us the fish account for June. We got approximately 1,276,252 pounds worth of fish across on their side. So we are starting to get the reports back. And as of next month, we'll start getting Inlet and Copper River. So we are seeing the revenue starting to flow. We are already starting to bill them for the wharfage and other things. So we should start seeing some revenue very, very shortly.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, I know that there were some fish tickets that were kind of missing or lost or whatever. Yeah, but these things have a habit of correcting themselves if
they have a habit of correcting themselves when you say, well, we're just asked for an audit, so it came up.
Yeah, right. You asked for the audit, is that correct?
No, I just threatened.
Okay, right, yeah. Great, Kyle, thank you.
How many companies are using the long dock?
There are 3 companies that we are identifying: Copper River, Inlet Fisheries, and Whittier Seafood. And Whittier Seafood has already reported for us.
Did we come up with a rate per pound?
We agreed on the April 27th meeting with all of the folks with the railroad there. The agreement was that we stuck with what the railroad had agreed to charge them for this year. That was a verbal at the point, and so we honestly had to just stay with what the railroad had agreed for the other people. It wasn't fair for Whittier Seafood to pay more than what we would have charged the other 2. So we came up with the 2 cents, I believe it is 2 cents a pound right now for this year. And then at the end of the year, we're going to have a meeting on it and see where we go from there.
There should be a different rate between fish that are processed in Whittier and fish that just go out the tunnel, I think.
There is, correct. I mean, there will be, but just coming across the dock, that's all we're saying at this point. Now, when they go in here and process out, there's a different count.
Right, okay. Yeah.
And I got a question about harbor maintenance, and this might just be different methods of reporting between the directors, but like Public Works reports their maintenance they've done on the city infrastructure. And last year I had a chance to talk with the Bellingham Marine, and they gave me a glimpse of maintenance that needs to be done on our new floats that we've installed, and I was just curious about that, if that's being done on our new floats currently. That would entail like sealing concrete, tightening nuts and bolts that hold the Unifloat system together.
Yes, we do. In fact, every year we have a preparation sealer that goes on the new docks. That was good for 1 year. So when this fall, we'll apply another application of that. As far as the tightening and putting stanchions back up that people happen to tie off to, we're doing a continuance maintenance on everything. So yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. So, John Janik, I had, thank you for publishing the grants and the dollar amount. One thing that I'd like to see on the next month, if you would please, is the expiration dates of these grants, when we anticipate we'll no longer be able to have access to the funds. I understand not today, but I'm saying in the month of August when you publish that information, you've got like a nice spreadsheet there. If you could just please add a column that designates the date of those various funds. Okay. And then Andy, this question's probably for you. I may have missed something. There were some funds spent on the building of this public safety building. I'm not sure if they were reconciled at the end of 2017 or if we still have outstanding funds that have not been reconciled for 2018.
Are you talking about expenses that were
not budgeted?
Right. For this year. That is correct. We are working on cleaning up our budget to get a crystal clear picture of where we are, because there are still some reconciliations that need to occur. But there are, Johnny, you can speak. Did you say you know the amount that has been expended on this building that wasn't budgeted for, correct? Can you, sorry, that way people can hear.
At the time Mark Lynch created the budget, he failed to allow anything for this building here when we moved into it. As such, right now we have spent actually now just over $100,000 that's actually in the deficit against this building right now. Some of those things that included were things like the actual building expenses. Other things were the plain utilities. In the past, at the building over there, the utilities were included into our condo fees that we paid. When we came over here, our utilities right now are running around $3,000 a month, and there's been nothing allocated for it. So we'll have to do a budget amendment there somewhere along the way. I just did the insurance today, and it was budgeted for one amount, and it came up about $20,000 short. So there is a budget amendment that's in the works. It's just going to be a matter of time sitting down, figuring out exactly where we are. Now that we're into July, June, I'll be pretty confident here pretty soon. And so I would encourage the council to have a work session here sometime, hopefully in August or September, prior to going into the next budget. So that's kind of where we are.
It just seems like we would want to have a resolution brought before us to get us get our 2018 operating budget updated. We're operating, I don't know, are we operating outside of our budget right now?
I believe that we are operating somewhat out of our budget, and that's why I'm working with Johnny to try and figure out where we are. There are still some reconciliations that need to occur. Right now, the reports as they are need to be cleaned up. And so you're right, there does need to be a resolution in order to appropriate funds to cover these expenses. We're working on it. I defer to Johnny. I'm working with him.
I would say at this point, we're probably far enough along with, because I've got the semi-annual numbers now, we could probably easily go through and figure out where we're sitting exactly, where we're short, where we're over, where we're fraying, and we could probably bring forward the resolution, I would say, by the next meeting. Because we do have to have a budget amendment. There's no denying that. We're over in some areas, we're short in others. So when you look at the entire bottom line, we're probably still within the budget, for being halfway through. But overall, though, there needs to be something there. There's more cleanup that we're doing. There's small things we're finding here and there. But when the budget was created, there were some shortfalls. But there's other areas that were padded kind of heavy. So it's at this point, there's no need to panic, but it is a point of concern. It's got to be addressed.
Where it came to, the light came on for me is that this is fine, in your report, you talk about getting ready for the 2019 budget, but we're not reconciled for the 2018, and it just seems like a lot of work.
Well, if you start counting backwards, the 2019 budget has to be adopted in December, which means that's the first reading has to be at least in November. It's got to be finalized in October, so we need to start working on it in September. So August is just around the corner.
Yeah, I know, and council members tend to go to Thanksgiving and Christmas vacations.
Just comment on that. In the past, we have often had a special meeting to get that. We usually don't get it. We visit, our first visit is usually in October, and then we go from there, and we have a special meeting if need to get the number of meetings.
Okay.
I think last year was the first year we actually did it without a special meeting, if I remember correctly.
Thank you. These two questions are for Scott. In your report, you talked about a generator. Where will that generator be located? In the building?
Yes, council will be located down in the Public Works facility inside the building, so we don't have to attend with all the snow and drift snow and maintenance of that.
I just didn't know if we were going to add a little something or other. I was hoping that we had it in the building.
None of the preliminary work was done during time of construction. The previous administration decided to eliminate that or put that in for construction, the preparatory. So we will have to do a little permitting. It's all inclusive of the RFP that I've written, that it's all inclusive for the electrical permits, the design and engineering for the HVAC system, the air exchange system as well. I put a budget in there in last month's and this month's. The price range is going to be from $100,000 to $150,000. I don't want to give you an engineer's estimated budget because we are in a public meeting. We want people to bid competitively.
That's good. And then you referred to I'm hoping this is you. I read all these reports. I hope I didn't get it confused from someone else, but a PCD survey. What is PCD?
Passage Canal Development, the Arms Lot. So it's the negotiation with Jim's Barnett and the plotting and surveying of his facility over there.
Okay, so the ongoing platting.
Correct.
All right, thank you, sir.
Council, it is my intent to put out, with your permission, of course, an RFP to solicit bids from generator and electrical companies to provide a generator. When that money comes, or when the bids come in and we see who is the apparent low bidder, it would come before council, and we would request that you guys fund that through basically our general fund surplus funds. It could
also partially be prorated to other uses of the building. Water, wastewater has approximately about 10% of the square footage area that we can contribute funds to that. So.
How much it's going to cost?
On the electrical side, we've already got a transfer switch. We've got an automatic transfer switch in the gear, which means we also have some emergency circuits already set up in the gear. So it's really just connecting the new generator to the existing electrical system. It's not like a whole bunch of new electrical equipment has to be purchased.
In terms of simplicity, this is fairly simple, but because of the voltage and the expertise, it requires a licensed electrician to do the work. We don't want to light Cam's hair on fire, so. Thank you, council.
Any other questions? Okay. Citizens' comments on agenda items not scheduled for public hearing. Approval of the consent agenda. So, looks like we have one item on the consent agenda. Normally we'd have more than one item to put it into the consent agenda, but it never hurts to practice here. Council, before you is the consent agenda. If you see any items in here that you do not want to have in the consent agenda, please speak up. Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Call for a vote.
Calling for a vote. Dave Dickinson.
Yes.
Dave Pinkish.
Yes.
Victor Shen.
Yes.
Deborah Hicks.
Yes.
Monty Irvin. Yes. Peter Denmark.
Yes.
And Dan Blair.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Madam Clerk, would you read the first resolution?
Resolution 16-2018, a resolution of the City of Whittier in support of Whittier Manor acquiring fee ownership of its leased grounds from the Alaska Railroad Corporation, provided the city receives compensation for the city's leasehold interest.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 16-2018.
I'll second it, but it should be resolution 2018A because of the change in wording we got at the last minute. There's a, I don't know if you got it, it just eliminates the part about the first reading. There's no substantial change, but.
I agree to amendment.
Discussion?
What the heck is this?
Here.
2 years ago, the City of Whittier presented to the Whittier Manor Condo Association a proposed lease to take over, as the city were to take over the land as a function of the master lease and then carry the lease forward for the Whittier Manor. This resolution calls for fee simple ownership for Whittier Manor and then fair compensation to be determined. Is that a lease? Is this, are they, I don't get it.
I'm sorry I didn't keep you Holly, I'm not sure exactly how it all started, but essentially I believe Holly may have been in the railroad building or something when the condo association was there, and anyway, there's some kind of confab going on, and it was asked at the last council meeting if a council member would sponsor it. Holly brought up the fact that you and I had a conflict of interest, and that we shouldn't have
This is a paradigm shift from where we were a year ago. A lease document has been presented to the Whittier Manor by the city of Whittier, approved by this council upon submittal. What's the resolution to that issue? Where are we at with that lease?
They don't want to sign it.
As far as I know, the draft lease was provided to Whittier Manor, and that's where it is.
Okay, and so is there a representative here from the Whittier Manor to speak to this issue?
And perhaps I can clarify a little bit about the resolution. The resolution doesn't actually take any action about a lease. It's just, it would be, if it were to be voted on and approved, it would be a statement of support for the Whittier Manor attempting to negotiate and acquire fee simple ownership of their grounds from the railroad. It doesn't actually do any of that. It would just be a statement of support.
Okay, and those of us who live in the manor are conflicted here and should not be discussing this, is what I'm hearing.
I think because this resolution is just a statement of support and it wouldn't actually have any legal action other than to express the city council's intentions or support or encouragement, I don't see a conflict of interest.
Okay, good, because this resolution represents a paradigm shift from previous planning and previous intent, and will take us away from that notion. I would like to hear from the Whittier Manor or the representatives, what's your position with the lease that we gave you a year and a half ago? They have not replied, responded in any way, shape, or form. And they're asking us to do something completely different, and I will not, until we get past the lease that's been presented to them, I don't see, it's pointless to take any other action, one step at a time.
My understanding of this is what they're asking for basically is our blessing and negotiating directly with them. But I totally agree with you, and it's totally within your purview to make a motion to postpone or table this, and hopefully someone from Whittier Manor will come to the meeting and explain it to us. Because I'm totally with you, because someone met somebody in another building and came up with us and blah blah blah, and then it is a different path. I understand it, but
this is very vague.
I know. So
this is ridiculous.
But with what you said, rather than, because of the way it was presented, I would be probably vote no, but I would think another option may be simply to table it, if anyone can make a motion to table it. So.
It doesn't speak to what fair compensation is.
It doesn't address anything. I'd like to make a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Before we do, though, could we discuss pros and cons? I mean, just...
What's to discuss? It's vague.
Well,
you need specifics.
But if we can get past the specifics, can we just talk in general, in theory?
The theory that fee simple is better than a lease, correct?
Yeah.
I think or is it? That's my question.
I think it's more what Peter was saying is, we offered them a lease, we haven't heard a response back, then we see this, we've had no firsthand knowledge of what Whittier Manor wants to do. So we're trying to act on something based on somebody met somebody in the building and wrote this, and if they wanted to not go forward with the lease or not sign it and then ask our blessing on this, you would think that they would at least come ask for it. But I think that's the issue, is the direction, not so much of what it says or anything. It's just simply that they're not representing themselves, and they should represent. If they want our support, at least show up at the meeting and say please. So I will second Peter's motion.
We currently have a motion on the table to adopt it. Would you like me to? I'm going to assume by consensus that motion is dead, and we go with Peter's motion.
The motion to table supersedes the first one.
Thank you.
Now, is the motion to table or postpone indefinitely?
Sorry, postpone definitely what you said.
Thank you. So I have a motion made by Peter Denmark to postpone indefinitely Resolution 16-2018A. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to second by Dave Pinkish. Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Call for a vote.
Calling for a vote. Peter Denmark.
Yes.
Dave Pinkish.
Yes.
Deborah Hicks.
Yes.
Monty Irvin. Victor Shun.
Yes.
Dave Dickinson.
Yes.
And Dan Blair.
Yes.
Motion to postpone indefinitely passed.
Would you please read the next resolution?
Resolution 17-2018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Whittier, Alaska, supporting the designation of the 1964 Earthquake Memorial Monument as a commemorative landmark in the Triangle area on Harbor Road.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 17-2018.
Second.
Discussion.
I'll second that.
Is this the first reading of this?
The resolution.
Resolution.
So yes, it's the only reading.
No.
So I had a question for Scott. This monument is going to be placed in the center of the Triangle area?
A specific place has not been selected. I have passed Mr. Spencer off to the council to get permission that you are interested in this. Alaska Railroad has donated the big stone. It's over by our well houses. Turning Arm Historical Society, excuse me, I may have got that name wrong, provided the plaque. Mr. Spencer would like to put it somewhere in the Triangle. With your permission, I will be more than happy to go down there, and if it's something you're interested in, and meet with the business owners and the people that are down in that area and find out where they would like it placed. The rock is about 20,000 pounds. It's about 15 foot long, about 8 foot wide, and about 3 foot thick. It's a very large stone.
So we're going to get this thing so it doesn't squish somebody during a tremor, right?
Absolutely, Mayor. We will find the best position to set it in, either sideways or standing up. If we do stand it up, we'll set it on a concrete base. We have a donation of heavy equipment if we need to lift it in place from Alaska Marine Lines or Alaska West if we can't get it stood.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. So if we approve this resolution, can we trust that if business owners have issues, or if you have issues with where its placement, we will hear about that versus it just being done because we said yes? You will definitely know exactly where it's going, and I will do my best to make it everybody down in the Triangle happy. And if I cannot accomplish that, I will not proceed until people are happy down there. I've got to live and work here, and we want business owners to be happy.
Is there a reason why it's that big of a rock?
It is a very unique rock. It's made out of granite, and it just happened to look good, and I saw it on the side of the road and made it come to Whittier. So, but it is a community effort as far as businesses, and between the museum and Alaska Marine Lines, Alaska Railroad, City of Whittier Public Works. It is a good thing. We're starting to develop walking tours. I can speak on behalf of Public Works. I see people around town all the time reading the signs that the Whittier Museum has placed about town. We're starting to look more and more like a city and a destination spot, and entertaining the tourists that come here, as well as educating some of our locals. So.
World's largest pet rock.
Paperweight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Destination Rock.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Calling for a vote, Victor Shen.
Yes.
Peter Denmark.
Yes.
Monty Irvin.
Yes.
Deborah Hicks.
Yes.
Dave Dickinson.
Yes.
Dave Pinkish.
Yes.
And Dan Blair.
Yes.
Motion to adopt passes.
Madam Clerk, would you read the next resolution?
Resolution 18-2018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Whittier, Alaska, consenting to the assignment of the lease agreement for lots 3, 4, and 5 of the Whittier Triangle Business Area from Gordon P. Hedel and Marilyn Hedel L. Ton, and authorizing the acting city manager to execute consent documents.
I move to adopt resolution 18-2018.
I'll second.
Discussion. Victor.
Oh, going back to some issues we had last year, are all the lease lot boundaries solid on this transfer?
Scott says yes.
Scott's saying thumbs up.
Right.
Good question.
Any further discussion?
Does this affect Peter?
If it did, I would probably mention it, Dave, unless I were conflicted, which I don't believe that I am.
Call for a vote.
Calling for a vote. Victor Shen.
Yes.
Dave Dickinson.
Yes.
Deborah Hicks.
Yes.
Monty Irvin.
Yes.
Peter Denmark.
Yes.
And Dan Blair. Or Dave Pinkish.
Yes.
And Dan Blair.
Yes.
Motion to adopt passes.
Sorry to see you go, Pete.
End of an era.
Madam Clerk, would you read the next resolution?
Resolution 19-2018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Whittier, Alaska, appointing the city election officials for the October 2nd, 2018 regular city election.
I move to adopt resolution 19-2018.
Second.
Discussion. Victor.
Nothing serious.
Call for a vote.
Calling for a vote, Victor Shen.
Yes.
Monty Irvin.
Yes.
Peter Denmark.
Yep.
Deborah Hicks.
Yes.
Dave Dickinson.
Yes.
Dave Pinkish.
Yes.
And Dan Blair.
Yes.
Maria?
No, not her. Diane? Works for the city.
As for,
I move to adopt resolution 20-2018.
Second.
discussion.
I guess I have a couple of points on it. One is I want to thank Kyle for the work in getting us to this point. With the change of city managers, there was no path to follow to get this done. So they basically had to go back to the very beginning to sort out how and who and all that stuff. So it was a long battle to get this. And it's my understanding now there are copies of this in the city manager's office, the harbor master's office, and the finance director's office. So if it happens again, we'll at least have something to start with. And I am the one that wrote the first, the resolution, not the whole thing, just the first paragraph. And I would like to just in case it happens, last time we had to come back and do a second motion because there's an application fee. And in that one, the application fee, we had to do an amendment to increase the actual bond amount. And if it's legal, my intent with this was that the bond fee would come out of the $1 million. But if it can't, then, and it's feasible, if the council can give consensus to adjust that $4.4 million. I don't think we'll have to, but so we don't have to go back and come back to us if they have to make that adjustment. It seemed like last time I can't remember, we had to add $10,000 to it or $100,000 to it to make it right, but it was all bond money. This time we have the $1 million separate, so I'm assuming we can pay the application fee from the $1 million versus the bond, but I don't know for sure, and I don't want to have to make administration come back to correct that. So, do you understand what I'm saying, Annie? Okay.
I do, and I think that we actually need to have a bigger conversation. I'm not a numbers person, I don't pretend to be, but from the numbers that I'm looking at, which I don't, if you can take one and pass it along. I've been having a conversation with Johnny about our harbor performance and the increased obligation that we're going to take on of approximately $460,000 annually to pay this back. I'm nervous about that, and I, for one, would welcome a robust discussion as to how exactly this is going to shake out.
I am in the same boat with Annie. This is a very large payment that the harbor is going to be taking on, and it's my understanding that whatever the harbor cannot pay from its revenues, the rest of the bond payments are to come from the cruise ship passenger excise tax. Is that correct?
Yes, I can give you a discussion that's been had, but we haven't had time to formulate it about the whole scenario, and it couldn't be put together. But Kyle and John and I have had a discussion about how to fund this, and the plan, what was discussed is that in rough terms, in rough numbers, there's $150,000 a year right now to pay for the existing bond. It would be another $300,000 to pay this new bond. And the plan to come up with was to figure out how much we would need from CVP funds annually for 10 years, and take that money from CVP, put it in CDs, and so that we could cash these out at the end of the 10 years. So you would basically, Kyle believes that the $300,000 can be paid out of the checkbook of in other words, the harbor can sustain the $300,000. Some of the $150,000 would have to come out of CVP funds, and then we'd take enough, put it away, and you'd actually have a kind of a locked-in plan to pay off the $2 million bond in 10 years or 8 years from now I guess it would be, and then the other one in 10 years. It may have to extend out a little bit, but that is being worked on to come up with an exact payment plan so that it will be passed by resolution, and then this will, in a sense, be done with as far as you're not having to look for money every year. That's where it's going to come from. But it wasn't this. The bond measure is more important to me first, because we're not looking at getting this money until December. So it's going to mess with the ability to build. So anyway, that is being worked on, but we don't have a number because we don't even know the interest rate yet.
May I ask for clarification? I'm sorry. So the plan then is to take the 300,000 from the harbor in addition to the 150 that we're currently obligated to pay?
No, not necessarily. That it would depend on harbor revenue what we look at, but we were trying to come up with a number that the harbor could afford and that you could take from CBP funds so that at the end of 10 years these bonds would be settled. And that number hasn't been come up. But most likely this isn't in stone because we haven't completed it, but the theory was the 300,000 a year bond payment from the 4.4 would come out of the harbor checkbook. The harbor can sustain that. And that's based on last year that there was a $200,000 turnover. There was a $56,000 payment that was a one-time thing. It was to pay for the electric and the ramp and stuff like that. So there was at least $256,000 above and beyond last year, and there's right now revenue's ahead. So, and if there has to be a rate increase to manage that, that's fine. But if you look at the numbers, it doesn't look like there does right now. There probably will be, but yeah, that was the intent. 300,000, basically 300,000 a year would be paid for by the harbor. The other 150 would be paid for CBP. Then you would add more CBP funds, put them in CDs or something, so that at the end of 10 or 12 years, this debt, both bonds will be paid off. That's kind of what we're working toward, but we just hadn't got that far down the road. But
so these are 20-year bonds, is that correct?
Yes. But you and I had discussed trying to get a shorter term, and maybe we can't get 10 or 12 years. I mean, that was the goal, is how much will we need, and we haven't got that far yet. But if you start putting money in CDs and you get 2.25%, then you're going to get in 8 years you'll have money built up. So there's a lot of calculations to finish that. And knowing the interest rate, we just found out that like in the last 48 hours, it will be under 4% is our understanding. So we didn't even know that. So you couldn't move forward until we had some more information.
So the idea is to get ahead using paying forward in the event that the cruise ship tax, as you can see, it rises and falls over the years, and so the CBP funds would be at least 150, and we don't know the number, like 300,000.
300,000 is based on $4 million at 4% and $75,000 a year to satisfy the 20-year bond. I was really close. So, but yeah, and if we would have had more different numbers, we would have had this done. But it just wasn't possible to get it done in time. But yeah, that is the intent is in worst case scenario, you got 20 years at 300,000 and 150,000. Then the intent was to try to come up with a plan to lock money up to shorten it. And my understanding, the latest I heard, is if we were to pay the bonds off in 5 years, we still pay the interest for the next 5. There is you have to pay the interest for the first 10 years. So the gain is, there's no gain to paying it off shorter than 10 years. You just invest that money and try to make interest on it, was the theory.
That's good, because that would be my answer.
If it was decided by council that we match the harbor 300 for 300, that each year that we were able to make that CBP payment of 300, we would basically be insulating us by an additional year, just rough numbers.
Can I throw something else in there as well? And that is someone, I don't remember, I think it was Peter, who had asked to know what obligations have already been designated for CBP. And I think, Johnny, do you have the list of because we already have things that we're saying we're going to pull out of CBP, and I think it's important for council to know what we've already committed to out of CBP.
On December 31st, 2017, CBP, whatever, had a combined total of $446,470.63, which consisted of $332,511 in the UBS investment fund.
Can you slow down?
$113,000.
Can you slow down on the numbers?
Paper? Can we see this?
All I have is just a scratch page that I did real quick. I'll be happy to give you a copy of it when I'm done.
That'd be nice to have it during this conversation.
I'll just go through real fast. I can run downstairs and make copies if you want them.
Here, what, okay. Can we take a short recess and make copies, like 5 minutes?
I see this is a pretty big deal.
I do too. That's why I'm, please.
Okay, I'll go make copies.
Recess.
Recess. I'd like to make one more comment, clarification here that I didn't finish. The $256,000 I mentioned that we came out in green, we also paid the $157,000 out of the harbor fund last year. So in reality, if you look at bond payments, the harbor was able to would be able to make, if it had to, $400,000 with no increase, if that makes sense. Because we did pay the $157, and the conversation was to invert that and pay the $300 and let the CVP fund pay the other. So it's not like we were 50. I kind of left it look like we were 50,000 short. We weren't. We're 100,000 plus in last year's revenue. If that makes sense. That should have been clarified.
And one quick question: do we have to decide this tonight? Why?
I mean, this is all new to us. I mean, I haven't heard this much information. This part is new. I know we've been talking about it. It's a lot of money, and I've been told we can't take money from accounts and put it towards, I'm confused.
We made a motion at the last meeting, it was a special meeting, to approve the rebuild of the harbor. This is the financing portion of it, which we had to have, and any delay in it will delay the turning in the application. And right now, at the early, I don't know if is there a deadline in the application? The application will not be reviewed until October. The money will not be available in December, no matter what. So I don't know if there's an application deadline or not, but we just found this out because the thought was that Resolution 36, 2018, 2 years ago, approved $6.5 million in bonds. We took 2.1. This is the balance of it. What wasn't known was that even though we're approved for 6.5, you still have to go through this application process and be approved all over again, and they only meet every quarter or something. So it is the how we're going to finance it is new. It is and it isn't. I mean, if you go back 2 years, we approved the bond, and then last meeting we approved moving forward, and this would be how we're going to finance it. This is clarity rather than just what we did last time. We just did it. We didn't really go through all this. So.
Well, and yeah, I'm all for clarity here, and it's still a bit muddy.
I'm still stuck on the last thing I would.
Taking a recess right now? Are we taking a recess right now?
I don't know. Whether we're going to put pilings in or not, and they were $1 million. And we're going to finance pilings for. I don't know. I mean, it's like, there was a discussion about whether or not the pilings were.
Make a motion for a recess.
If it was going to be reconfigured.
I'll second.
Wrong thing here.
We have a motion on the floor to take a 15-minute. What did you say? Did you mention time or recess? I'll second the motion.
Well, I was going to vote no.
I don't know, after hearing that you might have overextended
Well,
in your budget, and then
look at that from Annie's mouth earlier in the meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey. I attribute that to your Well, so I remember that section of it, but it's just a lot to go back. Well, then the beginning of the thing that we're operating outside of budget. Right, it just... See, all that I don't all know. It's just that I get lost in all that info, like how they all work. It's kind of those things I try to trust.
They have, yeah. There's some stuff coming. That might not service. Congratulations, by the way. You're welcome. I just thought about it. Oh, I need to tell you. I love it. Well, that's probably, yes. I'll send her all the well wishes and the support for sure. Well, I'll tell you the one that we interviewed tonight. I'm off with him. He's definitely, in my opinion, overqualified in a sense, but probably the best qualified. I don't know anything about the other guy, but I was talking with Dave about it. Dave Dickinson. Okay.
Ever billion here, billion there, very soon talking about real money.
Well, and we're sports and harbor here.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, no, this is-
I don't even remember what they said.
record reflect council's back in session.
Okay, you'll have to excuse my handwriting. I put this together on kind of on the fly, but we'll get through it anyway. Anyway, on December 31st, 2017, in the UBS fund, we had $446,479.63, consisting of $332,511.58 that was actually in the UBS fund and $113,968.05 that was in cash. As on December 31st, at the end of February, we received the allocation or the payment for fiscal year 2017 in the amount of $674,320, which gave us a total available cash of $788,288.05. Out of that, $158,000 is committed to public safety, $27,221 was committed to Parks and Recreation, $15,000 to the museum, and $76,413 to Harbor Debt Service, which leaves a grand total of $511,654.05 that's available. If we take the $500,000 out for the harbor, that will leave $11,654.05 in actual cash. But we still have the actual reserve of the $332,000.
That's for 2018.
That's what we received in 2008. We received, okay, what we have right now, at this very moment, we have $511,654 for the balance of 2018.
Okay, and what about future accruals into future years from CVP funds? 2019, 20, 21. We have been taking these dollars and accruing them into the future. Where are we at there? How much is committed to funds or projects going forward? Not what we have right now. Where are we in 19, 20, 21, 22?
I have nothing like that. All I have is what Mark left here for 2018.
Well, I am aware, I don't have the numbers, that we do have CVP funds already committed years into the future. I would like to know how much per annum and what they are committed to.
I think the only funds we have committed are the funds that are annually, like Parks and Rec and Museum and Public Safety, and they're listed right here.
Those are this year.
Those are annual. We've committed those annually. We just did the museum one. We upped it from 10,000 to 15,000. So these numbers are after that's all taken out. So there is no.
So we have nothing other than this committed CVP funds for 2019.
Correct.
I think we have already encumbered the CVP funds for bond payments already.
No.
What the 76,000 is?
But that is what I understand what you're saying there. We never took. Mark gave us that proposal, and it was like May 15th, 2016. It's by email, and it hasn't been done because the harbor's been paying it. So it was only done. We didn't follow through with that. So I see what you're talking about. I believe so. The annual funds that are committed are laid out right here. This is
for how many years?
It's until we change it. I mean, so
for every year in perpetuity, the way it sits.
So right now we have budgeted the 27,000. Parks and Rec had a specific amount that's been adjusted. But as far as what's been done by the council is we've committed 15,000 to the museum every year. We committed to 158,000 to public safety. So the number of 511,000 is after all that's taken out. That's what's left today. So next year we don't know how much we're going to get. But we don't have. What you're saying, it never was done officially. That it was just this was a suggestion by Mark, and we never stamped it. So
okay, well,
but that's what the next set of numbers would do.
We're still paying for this building through CVP funds going down the road here. Yeah, right.
This building's paid for.
Public safety building, the building in which we sit.
It's paid for.
I don't believe so. There's no future commitments that aren't that I'm aware of that aren't on here.
my knowledge, this building is paid for. There's no outstanding obligations that I'm aware of anywhere.
Okay, so you're showing us what's committed for CVP funds for 2018.
Right.
And what I'm hearing here is this is going to be identical in perpetuity going forward.
Yeah. Apparently for the 158,000 and then for the 15 for the museum.
And we have a specific amount for Parks and Rec, but we increased it this year. I'm thinking it was 15,000.
20. Parks and Rec's been
20 for Parks and Rec.
Yeah, that was
we had additional.
Right. So the 500,000 is the payment. Is to come up with a 5.4 million this time, and then at this point there would be nothing for the future. But we would need to commit an amount from CVP to fund the harbor. So it hasn't been done by council. It was simply done as a suggestion by Mark, and we never stamped it.
And this resolution is asking us to stamp it.
No, this resolution is asking to take 500,000 from the CVP fund to fund there's a 4.4 in bonds, and then we need $1 million more to come up with a 5.32 or whatever it is. And the suggestion is 500,000 from CVP, which cleans it out this year, and then 500,000 from Harbor Reserve, which has $960-some thousand in it.
Okay, and this is going to take us to about $450,000 a year on bond debt service.
Correct.
Where's that money coming from?
$300,000 would come from right now. We haven't stamped that, but what we're working on is basically $300,000 would come from the harbor checkbook, which it can fund. Last year it was, if you subtract out one-time expenses, it had $400,000 net because it paid this in 2017. In the beginning of 18, the harbor paid the bonds, not the CVP funds. So we're already paying the $157,000, I think it is. So the suggestion is to create, like maybe go with what Mayor said is $300,000 and match it with $300,000 and whatever is above and beyond the payment you put in CDs and then you pay it off. And as an example, that would be enough money to pay off the $2 million bond in 10 years, but it wouldn't pay off the 4.4 for probably 16 years or something like that, but that's the next proposal that...
Okay, so we're talking about indebtedness going forward to 15 years plus.
Well, it could be 20 if the CVP funds go away. But we're already committed to 18 years on the first bond. The bonds are set up where you can't pay them off early. You can pay them off after 10 years. If you pay them off at 5 years, you pay the interest for the next 5, so there's no advantage to that. So you take that money and put it in try to make interest on it, and then at 10 years you hit it.
Do we have an idea what the earnings would be off of a CD if we were to do that route?
They're going up, but it's going to be an annual thing. But right now, you're looking at being able to get about 2%, and then I would suggest by next year it might be 2.25. But then you multiply that. But that's what we're looking. That's the next step is trying to put that together. John and Kyle working on it. First thing you had to know is what the bond rate was going to be, and all we know is we were told it's going to be under 4, which just happened. But Kyle can probably most of this comes from Kyle. So what was asked of the council, and we never really did it of phase 1, was to come up with a payment plan. That's what we're trying to do, so that we can stamp a payment plan. The administration knows where the money's coming from, and it shouldn't have to be addressed again. It would just automatically be this and this, and that's how it's going to work.
But if this payment plan could be addressed with some specificity, I understand what you're saying and that you have a plan. It'd be nice to see this on paper. This is going 15 years in the future, and this does not pass for a report that is going to qualify adding another $300,000 in indebtedness to the city. I would like to see the payment plan. You're talking about taking CVP funds, putting them in investment funds, paying the bond payments back from those investment funds. It's rather a complicated process here. This is not straight line accounting.
And I hate hate to be a Debbie Downer, but some other issues that I would like for council to consider is the fact that this building and all the expenses for this building are not currently in the budget. It is an unknown number. The DeLong dock, another unknown number obligation that we've taken on. I'm just throwing it out there. If we're going to have this discussion, it needs to be holistic.
Would there be some other potential sources of funds? I mean, is this it, or could we get grants? Could we get...
It's potentially possible that the bonds could be paid off in less than a year.
Peter. This has been going on for a couple of years. We've already taken out a bond for the work that's been done on the harbor. It's my understanding there's a general agreement on the council that we do want to find a way to finish the harbor project. Okay. And my concerns are going to process here. We have nothing from Ports and Harbor here. This payment plan should be run through the commission first. We need as many eyes and opinions on this as we can. We have a lot of counselors here. Very few of us have any play in the harbor. I'd like to see this payment plan put on paper, spread over the course of the bond payments, and a function of anticipated CVP funds, which are going to be the major payer here, as well as harbor revenues. Have it vetted through Ports and Harbor, have them pass a resolution for their approval before it comes to council. So I think we're a little bit out of school there, and I understand the concept that you're putting forth, but I personally don't understand the implications 5 and 10 years down the road here. I'm not sure that our assumptions are correct, especially from Annie's input, what she just said, and her comment previous in the meeting that we are operating outside of our budget. We don't know. We just don't know. And to create this degree of indebtedness from the blind, I am not comfortable with.
I'd just make one comment. We're not going to be funding this building with CVP funds, are we? For maintenance and stuff?
Why not? Qualifies.
Where are the anticipated funds coming from for the generator?
What?
The generator?
The general fund.
General fund, Scott said.
Okay, general fund.
Anyway.
Well, we're not reconfiguring the harbor, and so...
Yes, it is.
Well, not really. Spending $2.3 million for having some posts sticking up out of the seabed, and then paying $2.3 million over that for how many, 15 years? That's a lot of money. And the harbor is going to be identical to what it is now, except that it's getting to look more like what was selected in the past by taking the concept of taking the east side of H-block fingers out. It's because in the plan that was selected, H-block wasn't even there. But okay, some dirty soil was encountered, and it was never completed. And now it seems like a lot of money to just hold the infrastructure in place. Which is identical to what we had in the past.
I think something I'd like to see is, at this point, I don't want to see any further CPV funds allocated to this harbor rebuild. What I would like to see is Ports and Harbor Commission, maybe the Small Boat Harbor Whittier Small Boat Owner Association. Is that association?
Whittier Boat Owners
Whittier Boat Owners Association. I'd like to see these groups come together and contribute in on the brainstorming of coming up with funds to pay for the rest of this rebuild. We have already invested, I can't remember, millions of dollars already to get these first two phase, the rebuild these last few years already. What is it? I think it amounts to 5 million? I don't even remember. Dave, Mr. Pinchris, do you remember how much we have put in for the rebuild so far in the last 5 years from CPV?
I don't know how much was from CVP, but the majority of it was not. We got a $2 million grant. We matched that.
I do remember.
There might have been a match with I don't know the exact numbers, but a lot of the money, you know, when the $2.559 million that was given to the city for the harbor years ago was not spent on the harbor either. You might take that into consideration. Like most of the money that's spent at the head of the bay, that was actually designated to the harbor. The city appropriated other places. I think out of the $2.559 million, 800,000 was actually spent on the harbor.
How much again? How much?
800,000 was spent.
800,000.
The rest of it was spent on other things.
I remember the CVP fund, when I first came on the council, was in excess of 4 or 5 million, maybe even 6, and it's down to 500. And we spent, what, 1 to 2 million on this building of the CPV?
I think it was 1.
You know, just going backwards, I think we've.
And there was 3.3 million, I think, was the amount at one point in time in the fund, because they were looking at using it to build that.
That's the number I would like to look at, is like how much money the city have decided to spend from the CPV on the harbor already, and I'm hesitant to spend much more of that money in the near future on the harbor, because there's other things I'd like to see that money go towards, such as improving any upland improvements to the harbor front, bathrooms that needs to be, pedestrian infrastructure that needs to be improved. We have a city park that we'd like to build, and I would just hate to see all of this money committed to the harbor.
Entirely feasible to finish rebuilding the harbor without putting those pilings in. I don't think spending $2.3 million for pilings to hold floats is a great investment. Peter.
Once again, continuing with the harbor, I think, has been an established goal of the council. We have started in that direction, and we wish to complete in that direction. And I think that utilizing some CVP funds are going to be required to get it done. I would just like to see a specific plan and a specific accounting spread over time as a function of projected CVP earnings every year and projected CVP projections as a function of this list going forward. And I would like to see that specific financing plan be vetted and explored by Ports and Harbor. They have to have a voice here. We've got to stay within our process and let them resolve to support, offer the council something. I know a presentation was made from them, but we don't have any minutes, we don't have any document to show that there was an approval there. And going through that process, then bringing it to the council to create this kind of indebtedness to the city without a specific revenue cost analysis is unreasonable.
The Ports and Harbors voted on which design option to do, and they also voted on on moving forward with the construction, and they were aware of the bonds, and it was a unanimous vote.
Okay.
And maybe Kyle was there, maybe he can speak to some of that.
Isn't there, doesn't Portsmouth Harbor have an administrative responsibility to forward their decisions and opinions to the council? They're an advisory board to the city administration and the city council. And we have nothing.
It used to have minutes.
Used to have minutes when, and if they were, and they also used to resolve, they would make a decision and present a resolution to the city council. If you go back years, when the whole head of the bay thing started up, the city, Portsmouth Harbor Commission presented a resolution to the city supporting the basin, the boat ramp, all that. There's no interface between the commissions and the council. I would like to think that planning and zoning might have a play in this Whittier Manor business here. We don't hear from them. We're making decisions on some handwritten notes that create significant indebtedness to the city when we already know that we're operating outside of our budget. I would like to get a firm accounting of where we're at before we make indebtedness decisions that are going to carry us forward as long as 20 years. So do we have a gun to our head here? Do we have to make a decision and do this tonight?
Could we have a... Kelly, do you have something?
Is it appropriate?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about the PTBT tax. Isn't that what the passenger transportation tax is? And there used to be $1 in the harbor that just got sucked into that PTBT. Why isn't that, when PTBT really is about people stepping on and off boats in the harbor, why isn't that being used for this purpose?
It's an excellent point. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah.
The critical thing is, the reason that we're trying to get approval on things now is because we have a certain period of time where we can do the removal and the pilings and stuff this fall. So that's the critical point. If we don't do it now, this time, then we're going to be postponed a year. That's the only critical problem. Now, as far as the money for paying, Peter, I agree with you. But we were scrounging around trying to get this all together, so we did not have time to get everything lined out for you, and I apologize for that. But we, in the harbor fund alone, we could support paying the entire up to the, from now on. The critical thing was we did not have the funds available to support the $1 million.
And thank you. But once again, we're making a multi-million-dollar decision based on information that was scrounged here. I would like to see this spread and delineated over time, and vetted through the proper processes as mandated by our code.
Kyle, can the project be phased?
Actually, the project is going to be phased. The big, most important thing was to get the contract signed so they could start looking at the timeline. Now, Dave Penkush and I were going to meet with Bellingham Marine and find out what our time frame would be and how we could phase this, where our dollars would come from, what we'd have to be paying out to them. So yes, it can be. But, Peter, you keep saying that we didn't vet this through Portsmouth Harbor. Dave Goldstein was here, and he was there when we were talking about this.
And I was at the meeting, or watched it on the tube. Right. I saw it, but where's the documentation? Because it was discussed. A lot of things are discussed.
Absolutely.
And what I know for a fact is this payment plan was not discussed.
There was no payment plan discussed. You're absolutely correct. Because because at that point, we didn't know.
Okay, and I'm glad that somebody is starting to formulate a plan here, and if we do know, let's please run it through the process as mandated.
And absolutely, and we will. Okay. So we just, this happened quickly, and that's the reason, so.
Okay.
I'd like to comment about, you're talking about phasing like we were. It gets really expensive to do it again. That's why we did this. We actually looked at phasing it again, and I can't remember what they said, but Bellingham Marines said it's going to cost significantly to break it again, because you have to go back, and so far we haven't had to do hardly any work twice. If we do it again, then when you reconfigure and do the pilings, you start moving stuff around. A good example of that was the cost to, it was $175,000 to move that crosswalk 20 feet. That's a good example of what we would be against. So that's why we didn't do it. You could potentially do it, but every time you got to move something, you got to move the wiring, move the plumbing, and it's actually the wiring and the plumbing that gets really expensive. But what we're finding is the Legos aren't cheap to move. They're easy to move, but they're not cheap to move. So that's why we didn't do that. And we are running to we're at the limit of the lifespan of the pilings. And that is an option, is to go with not do the pilings, but then when you either leave the harbor the way it is when you do redo pilings, but if you were to come back, and I'll give you an example, this is off the top of my head, but we could probably do the plumbing, electric, and the rest of the docks for about $3 million. To go back and replace the pilings and then reconfigure is probably going to cost you more than $3 million. So you're from what they told me, and this is a total guess, it would be somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million to go back and do it later. So that was why we avoided it.
And I don't want to bring into question the scope of the project here. I think that has been pretty well discussed on this council and through Ports and Harbor. I want to just see us use our process here. We have a payment plan. Once again, I know I'm reiterating myself, but repeating myself. But I need to see the numbers spread over time. We're looking at, if the city is already operating out of its budget, the assumptions that you're making about CVP funds and investment funds and the ability of those to repay, I don't think are scientific. And this should be more than that. And so, if we don't have a gun to our head, I would like to see the harbor master and our finance director spread out the numbers over the term of the bond, which is 15 years right now and could possibly be extended, as a function of anticipated revenues and how we are going to use those funds through this investment process to pay them, and vet it through Ports and Harbor, who can offer an opinion to the council, and we can go forward from there.
Can we then give them a little bit of direction on what you're looking for? For example, an equal match from 300,000, and just calculate that out. That'll give them something specific to work on, and rather than trying to do like 10 or 12 years.
I know you've been well entrenched here personally, and certainly significantly more than I have. So I know you have some specific ideas here. But yes, if we're accruing that $300,000 from the harbor budget every year, that needs to be pushed forward so we can see it on paper and try to determine the impact it's going to have going forward.
Does that make sense, John? Okay.
How soon could that happen?
Before we ask that question, let me make sure that I'm understanding where we're at. We need to get a crystal clear understanding of where we are financially right now. From that launching point, then we can start forecasting where we're going to start pulling, whether it be the CPV or the PTBT or whatever funds. So crystal clear understanding where we stand now, then
if we don't know
forecasting.
Point, we cannot go Go for it.
Well, I agree with you, and I'm just vocalizing. And from there, then start forecasting the plan of how we're going to meet these obligations should we choose to accept them. Yes?
Yes. And just to add, I want to bring the appropriate commission into play here.
So then working together, Johnny, Kyle, myself, get this report, get the finances, the skeleton, pass it over to the commissions, have the commissions vet, discuss, figure things out, come up with a report or a recommendation.
If it makes sense to our finance director, our harbor master, Mr. Pincush, who is well vested in this process, and I do thank you, Dave, for all your efforts over the year here. We would not have gotten this far without you. Then it can be brought to the council with more eyes on it than we have right now. Please.
And although I can't promise 2 weeks, 4 weeks, as soon as possible because time is of the essence.
Well, and I think whatever that means, it would be foolish to proceed without going through this exercise, regardless of outcome.
I agree. We'll start working on it right away. I mean, if that's the direction where we're at.
I believe we have a motion. That's my opinion. There's a motion on the table to approve this resolution, I believe, right?
Yes. One more comment to Annie, though. The CVP versus PTBT. Kelly's point is very important. All of the revenue from that comes from boats from the harbors. But on the other hand, CVP funds have limitations. One of them is you can use to pay the harbor. PTBT can pay the electric bill here. So it just makes sense to me to utilize a fund that has limits on it that are appropriate to it versus one that is money that goes in the general fund.
It's more flexible.
It's more flexible. So why use PTBT money when you've stuck yourself on CVP funds? So as long as it's available.
As Kelly said, this is harbor usage funding, the PTBT money, and why doesn't it stay in the harbor?
I got a comment on that. I think it's my understanding that PBT tax can be paid, a business can choose to pay that instead of sales tax.
That's true.
So, I mean, I don't think it should be limited to the harbor in that case.
It isn't. It all goes in the general fund.
Yeah.
And this council
stay that way. Unfortunately, as much as
you mentioned it being appropriated to it. What was a trade-off was we were raising such a small amount. We used to have a cross the dock tax, the dollar tax. I don't remember what it's called, but we lumped that into the PTB tax because it was, the harbor was, every charter boat was filling out a form every month. The harbor employees were filling all these forms, and it amounted to less than $10,000. Okay, so we did two things. We rolled that into the PTBT tax, raise it $1. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that happened, that if you want to remember, is the Klondike used to be in the existing harbor, and then it moved to the other marine, and we lost that. So the intent of the tax was lost because it was meant to be a harbor tax, but it was written specifically to one harbor. So what we did was we went back and captured all charter boats instead of just the ones that are in the harbor. So in that sense, to reduce the workload for the harbor for a small amount of money, we just rolled it into, which by the way increased our revenue by $50,000 a year. But
it just doesn't seem very clear, because it seems like some of that funds should be designated to the harbor, but then at the same time, if they can choose to pay that instead of the sales tax, which would go to the general fund, which would service like paying for the utilities of this building and street maintenance.
It all goes to the
public safety. Anyways, another topic for another time. Another thing I would like to see is if you can find alternative sources of funding other than CPV as well. Maybe, I understand we were not going to be able to get away from that completely, but I would like to see that fund not completely chopped up. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna, do I have a motion to table, or Don?
Yeah, using CPV funds in the future is kind of a guessing game.
All future revenues are done.
Well, but this is more so.
This is an outside
all
source.
This is a change in our economic status countrywide or worldwide?
Yes.
And they dropped like a stone. We went from 5 ships every 2 weeks to 3 ships every 2 weeks overnight. And one of them was a small ship.
All the more reason to do this exercise, because it is fragile.
I'm just saying, be conservative in your future estimates of what your income's going to be off CDP, because they could walk out that door. You have one shipping line in here, and if for whatever reason they decide to pull out of here, that's gone. And you're hanging there. If you're not budgeted carefully, you could really get yourself in trouble.
As the harbor master mentioned, the harbor fund today could absorb the entire amount if it had to, but the intent is to get it paid off quicker.
Okay, do I have a motion to table, postpone?
I believe postpone is the proper motion. Tabling kills it.
Yeah, postpone.
So moved.
Have a second?
Postpone to the next meeting?
Indefinitely. Postpone indefinitely. Can come up at the next meeting or the meeting after or the meeting after. It can be put back on the agenda at any time.
I second it.
Call for a vote.
Calling for a vote, Peter Denmark.
Yes.
Victor Shen.
Yes.
Monty Irvin.
Yeah.
Deborah Hicks.
Yes.
Dave Dickinson.
Yes.
Dave Pinkish.
No.
And Dan Blair.
Yes.
Motion to postpone indefinitely passes with 6 yes and 1 no.
Okay, moving on to new business. Comprehensive plan.
What is coming through you, through your hands is the proposal that I emailed on the 13th for review. Basically, moving forward with the comprehensive plan. We already have tentative dates scheduled. In fact, something else after this discussion that I need to ask you, should this proposal be approved? Well, let me not get ahead of myself. Sorry. The proposal right now is for $33,500. We have budgeted $20,000 for the comprehensive plan. The reason for the additional expenses over the comprehensive plan is because this time around we're actually contemplating master plans as well, which are way more specific, way more in depth. The way that we would fund this exercise is the $20,000 that has already been allotted. Then we would basically take $2,700 from the 5 different departments across the board, since this benefits all and everything. And we're ready to get started. We have a meeting with staff on July 27th, pending again approval of the proposal. On August 6th, I was going to poll council members. It's a Tuesday in the evening sometime, to go ahead and get council input as to next steps. But I can't do anything. We can't move forward until we get past the proposal.
So, what I'm seeing, and this is an observation, Annie, this is not, I have been listening that your staff is you're understaffed, but I think you're overextending. I mean, you have been adding more stuff. We're not, I mean, we don't have the budget figured out for 2018. We're moving into 2019. I have serious doubts that the Tiger Grant's going to get completed. And it's like, and then everybody was scrambling. We did not get an optimal outcome for this presentation for this harbor thing. You guys are overextended. I mean, I understand that comprehensive plan it's our wish. It's one that we have made very clear that we want to have happen. But the reality is, given what you have to work with moving forward, I have a perception that we are self-injuring moving at this speed.
I agree. I was trying to fulfill council wishes. If you want to table this, I am A-okay with that, but it needs to be council, like I was given a directive. Here's the directive. Hey, you guys are killing yourselves. Yes, we are, but we were directed to.
Life is happening. Things that you had absolutely no idea happened. It happens that way. Let's, if there's any way to salvage the Tiger Grant, let's salvage that Tiger Grant. If there's any way to get a better clarity of what we are operating under in 2018, I mean, council is I think they're asking the right questions, and please take it in. Thank you. You're a lion, but and fearless. But it's my perception that the administration's overextended.
Thank you for that. I am ready for council direction.
We need to table the comprehensive planning project.
I would basically say the same thing. We or you, I think a combination of we, need to set short-term priorities based on the amount of time available. I think the harbor thing is a very good example. That in the Tiger, granted, we've been pushing on this and we wanted this really bad, but it's been set back twice before for a reason. So I would completely support. Let's set our priorities, what's attainable, and not lose something because of it. So,
how much time though will this take out of your day? I mean, if you're contracting this out to Kitty, she does all the work. How does this affect you?
At this point, I'm not sure. I have to communicate with her in setting the meetings. I'm the one communicating with council. I'm the one communicating with staff. I'm the one that would help facilitate the public meetings in terms of scheduling. Beyond that, it's having to give a lot of back information. I'm not super crystal clear, but I do want to thank council for recognizing that we're running on all cylinders.
I know it, but this is critical, man. This is killing us.
Yeah, but it is in a way, but also what's more important, the city manager or that? So, I mean, I would look at it as, what about the thought of moving that back to starting in January?
We could do that. Kitty is very amenable to our needs. It was my understanding that over the summer, I had been directed to gather economic forecast data over the summer. So that was the rush. That way, when we started the public hearings and meetings in the fall, we would be prepared with information. So that's why I'm like, oh, we need to hurry up. We need to have this information ready to go in the fall. But if you guys are okay with waiting until January, I and my staff would certainly, especially with now the ASAP priority of having to figure out the finances for the bonds, which is another time-critical project, I certainly would appreciate a little breathing room to focus on the bond right now and tabling this till January. Sorry, Dave.
No, I know. It's frustrating, but and maybe not until January, but how about until when we hire a city manager?
Sure. Yes.
I mean, if we hire a city manager before January, then could we then bring this back into play?
So I'm the one that was asking for that economic data, and I apologize. I did not realize that administration was going to be pulling that themselves. I thought
Kitty will be facilitating that process. That's why we're having the meeting on the 27th, should we move forward.
It just seemed like a lot of effort to prepare for that. I mean, a 4-hour meeting is a non-trivial, I mean, that's like a marathon. That's, and it doesn't just, to make that meeting work well, the staff has to be prepared. And there's so much that's, I mean, we're in the thick of things here. I mean, the things at the head of the bay, things are life is going on here, and it's not always as predicted. And I am concerned about the well-being of our staff and administration. We need to work at a pace that's sustainable.
I like Dave's suggestion, though, that if we hire a city manager to come on board, that's one other body to help spread. So it may not be until January, but if you guys could give us some breathing room, see what happens if one of these two fellows work out, and then we can revisit, because it is important in this, getting a comprehensive plan updated helps with funding, with grants. I mean, it's critical that we get it done, but again, I also appreciate the fact that the recognition is occurring that we're working on all cylinders. So can we just pause and see what happens with the city manager candidates? Can we wait to see what happens with the harbor financing or the bond financing and take it from there?
So council, I mean, comprehensive plan is near and dear to my heart, and we want it done well, and we want to have survivors of the administration. Council discussion? I just realized I didn't even ask about Parks and Rec. It's been a long day. Citizens discussion. Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Administration. I have two issues here, and I'll try to keep it short because I know the hour is getting late. The first is kind of a minor thing. I know my wife has been bugging me about this, so I thought I would ask the Council or ask the Administration here, how and when will the future of the property that's off to the west of Begich Towers on Glacier ultimately be decided?
Is that an administration issue or a council discussion? I would imagine I would welcome direction from council as representatives of our community.
As a city manager.
Okay, so basically nothing's going to be done until then.
Probably not, but I will just make one comment about potential use for it, but we have to be careful with competition. But clearly with Whittier Seafoods coming in, there is less boat storage, and there have been more questions, particularly from commercial fishermen, about storing their boats there. This is the first time I've said it to anybody, but there is potential for boat storage someplace, and that could be one of it. It's just simply because the harbor master has been approached about keeping boats over the winter, and with, we've lost I don't know how many spots, but when what's full is full, there's going to be demand. So either the parking lot will have to be utilized more in the winter, or some other alternative if we wanted to accommodate. So that's a possibility, just letting you know.
Okay, and I would hope that residents in Begich Towers are also kept abreast of that and given the opportunity to comment.
Certainly, and you have boats in your overflow lot. I saw them today.
I do. Okay, the second issue here is the road to Emerald Cove. I'm getting to the point where I probably don't have a lot of years left on this earth. The last time I went on that trail out to Emerald Cove was close to 20 years ago. A week and a half ago, I had the fortune to be able to do that hike with my daughter and my granddaughter. We drove out towards that big gravel area there near Salmon Run 2, thinking we'd just park there and go ahead and hike that trail. And we saw a big barricade over there with a bunch of signs saying don't drive beyond this point or something to that effect. So we parked my daughter's vehicle over there and we walked down the road. We saw Pruse, the excavator, was working over there, and we were very polite, very careful of that. We waited until the operator had a chance to stop, and we asked if it was okay if we went through. He said no problem, and we went through. We did our hike there, and just was one of those spectacular days that I will hopefully remember for as long as I can remember. I know Parks and Rec improved that, did a lot of work on that last year. There was a lot of man-hours, volunteer work on that. The Girdwood Gazette highlighted that trail. I think the editor wrote a special piece on that, just talking about this is one of the crown jewels that Whittier has. We also have locals and visitors, some from different parts of the world. I've come across those people who go up there to hike, to take advantage of the scenery over there, and also try to pick some berries, either salmon berries or blueberries over there also. I think there was one writer for the Anchorage Daily News years ago who found a trail that went up the side of the mountain over there and paralleled the glacier, and he said that that was available for people to use too. I think it was Sean Lyons, one of the outdoor writers. Fishing at Salmon Run 2. People fish there. Silvers go in there, they mill around, and then they go their own way. We also have a lot of pinks over there, which some people may or may not want to fish for. I think common courtesy played a big role when I went out there, and there were some other people from Utah who were also out there, and they were very polite, trying to work with the Pruse construction people at the time. The problem I have here is that, one, there was no notice. Number two, we are a community that's used to schedules. Everybody here has used the tunnel, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So schedules are not foreign to people here or people who visit here. And I would offer a solution here that at certain times, maybe posted times, that area be opened so people can utilize that Emerald Cove Trail, and then other times where people can come back. I know the issue of safety has been brought up, and I will tell you this, that for any of you who have gone beyond Salmon Run 1 and gone by that big rock slide, I think I probably am more at risk in a safety issue with something like that than I would be going out towards Emerald Cove. It's also my understanding that that land is owned by the Chugach Native Corporation. It's not city land, and I'm not sure what the status of the road is. I know federal funds are going into that. I don't know whether that area has been deeded over to the city or not. But I can assure you that if I can't walk on the road, if that's city property, then I'll go to Chugach Native Corporation and get their permission to walk right beside the side of the road and achieve the goal that I have. It's unfair to me, it's unfair to people here in Whittier, it's unfair to the visitors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Kelly?
Wasn't he
Just have a couple of things. One, on behalf of the Whittier Chamber of Commerce, you put $5,000 towards and match the Whittier Chamber of Commerce $5,000 for the filming. The filming is going to start Thursday, so there'll be in town. They have a couple of different days planned, so you'll see the film crew around town. First part of it is going to be some 20, 30-somethings, hiking, fishing, taking part in kayaking, and participating in maybe drinking a beer. And then the second part of it is going to be probably 50, 60-somethings, fishing, restaurant dining. So they're really going to include all of the businesses in Whittier. So wanted to let you know that that is well underway. We, several of the businesses in town have taken them up on their offer to get a video as well. And we participated in that, and this is a top-notch company, super excited about just what their vision and what they're coming up with. So I think we'll be very, very happy that you will be starting to see some film crews around town. The other thing I wanted to ask is that if the city would consider writing a letter to NOAA. For those of you that aren't familiar, mariners, there are buoys in the sound, they're weather buoys that tell us what the weather conditions are. The main weather buoy is right out here in Port Wells. Every single boater has to go by that. It is our lifeline, it's our eyes. And that buoy has been down since April. In fact, it broke loose and is now sitting at Piggott Bay. We've written letters to NOAA and to really no avail. We get a nice letter saying it's supposed to be fixed. Maybe we'll get to it, and it's completely non-efficient response. The gal I've talked to at NOAA has said she needs more fire. She needs more people telling her so that she can take it up the chain to say how important this is. And for instance, this last weekend, did you see how dead the harbor was? You know, it was a pretty nice day here because they were forecasting 30-knot winds, which did not come through, but we didn't have a buoy to tell us that. We didn't know what was out there. People canceled trips, fishing trips, charter boats, and nobody came to the harbor. It was dead. That affects all of us. Harbor fees, sales tax, PTBT, you name it. It is essential to us. We need some firepower because my little letter just didn't seem to work. I'm happy to give you address and some speaking points if we can get a letter from the city. And from the city council.
Would it be beneficial for us to draft a letter and maybe put it out in What's What Whittier and put it out like, or I don't know.
It just needs to go to NOAA. It needs to go to NOAA so they can go up the chain that this buoy is essential. And here's the other problem to it. Now people aren't going to trust it. So it's dangerous. So now we're not going to listen to a forecast and you'll get private boaters going out there. Or would you have more people submitting to it? Would that be beneficial, or just needs to be? I think right now I've already asked the Forest Service. I know the Marine Highway has written a letter. We need firepower. We need people with some authority. Well,
yeah, I could get Mike Shower and just see if that would be a simple thing for him, especially if we draft the letter.
I think that we need some higher ups. I didn't see that Senator Murkowski's staff was here until the day after they were here, but I would have loved to chew their ear about that. And then one other thing I just wanted to, oh sorry, did any more? I have one other comment just to talk about that maybe we can start thinking about is a noise ordinance in the harbor. These fishing boats are coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning, leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning, midnight. They have no mufflers. It's ridiculously loud. There's people that live in the harbor, people that work in the harbor, people that pay top dollar to stay in a hotel in the harbor. But that also continues out into the sound. We're actually getting information from our clients that are saying, my gosh, we couldn't even sleep at Hobo Bay because all we could hear were these really loud boats echoing off of Esther Point. I would like to suggest that maybe we do have a noise ordinance and that we go to these fishing boats and say, by this time next year, you cannot have a vessel in our harbor that is over so many decimal points. That will help our community, but will also help our larger community, which is our lifeline. So I guess that's just as a recommendation to something to think about. I would love to see some action on that. If there's any comment.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Is this something that our federal lobbyists can help us with regard to NOAA? NOAA's a federal.
I'm going to contact everybody I can. Chris, Brad, Mike Shower, everyone.
But I mean, if the lobbyist, basically if the federal lobbyist says that, a document signed by all council members would be of good use for him down in Washington, D.C., we can certainly make that happen.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment on that too. I think number one, I think before we go too far, we should educate ourselves on what the problem is. And number one, it's not just buoy 81. Buoy 60 has been down for months as well. But and buoy 81 is the first one out here. It's been down every spring. But the problem is the cutter that comes to service that comes in August, and they have normally it doesn't break loose. Well, it's the second time it's broke loose, I think. But so they have a annual. I believe it's annual maintenance with it, but I think it's scheduled for August. We get it. So what's the problem is it goes down because they replace batteries, and I think that one has a solar panel on it, if I remember correctly. But so it isn't just saying fix it. I believe the argument more so than just for a one-time solution is we need that buoy available through the summer, not through the winter. I mean, I want it through the winter too, but but I think the problem is that it seems it's a high-tech buoy, and the old ones are better. But isn't buoy 60 still down or also?
60 is still there. 61 is in there.
61. Okay, so it's multiple buoys, but I think it's the schedule of the repairs is the problem. But I'm not positive, but I'm almost positive. What's the name of the cutter? The buoy tender. Sycamore, and they just come, but they're not. It's not like they're in Canada in the summertime. They're out here. It's just the scheduling. But I'm sure if we ask to have it done in April, somebody else is going to lose it too. So I think that's the problem, is the scheduling of repairs.
So moving to council administration's response to citizens' comments. I think Mr. Goldstein has a good point. If there's any way that we could at least have a conversation with Pruse and see if there is a time frame when they're just not present, and it's like a no cost thing for us, and we can do it safely. I don't know. It's just initiate a conversation, please.
I'm trying to think of something to say about the noise problem. I mean, there's no question it's a problem, but I don't know if there's a solution, because those boats are built, because the way they're built, they have no room for exhaust really, or mufflers. They could put flaps on it, I guess. But the biggest problem is, it's essentially, and I'm not picking on commercial fishermen, but they have jets. In order for them to come in the harbor when it's windy, they know how to drive, and what they do is they put their RPMs up, and the jet is like it's in neutral, but they need it. So instead of shifting throttle back and forth, they shift forward reverse, so they rev them up to come in the harbor. It's kind of like a plane taking off. They put up the RPMs and take off. So it's more of a feat of it's the way the system is designed. So I don't see an answer to it, because what you're asking to do is come in without sufficient steerage, and that's going to be, if you watch those guys come in, they can thread a needle, and they do it because they know how to get their RPMs up and do it right. So I know it's a problem, but I don't know an answer to it.
When they idle for an hour at 5 o'clock in the morning, there's no reason for that.
That's a good point.
We sell pristine wilderness out here.
Well, the council is pushing for more boats in the sound, so if that's going to happen, then you're going to have more conflict, especially when you have people that will start fishing at night because all the fishing holes are taken during the day.
Do you have anything, Mike?
Yeah, just a question. I'm sure the city of Whittier has a noise ordinance that one thing. Are we on the books as staff?
Charlene?
Yes,
okay.
We could review that in a future meeting.
but there are exceptions to the noise ordinance. Railroad has an exception, city has an exception.
I don't want to discourage a snowblower from operating early in the morning.
Railroad operation is, but it is in there, and I don't know, I don't have it ready right now because I can look it up. I believe it's from 10 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning.
We could post that at the harbor. I mean, that's one thing that could be done, just as a potential, maybe people will think about it.
I will say that living in the harbor, I have gotten used to the boat noise, so it really doesn't bother me. Actually, it bothers me more than quiet. But then again, I'm in the middle of the basin, and I'm not up in some place where it would be vibrating around.
All in favor of adjournment?
I listen to the sound of how good the engines are running. I do. When somebody starts up a diesel engine, the first thing they do is listen to see if it's running good. Yeah, they tell when it's not. Gas engine, same thing. What those guys do.